these are stories that people just don't know, and I think it really kind of permeates our minds and society. That once you actually start talking to people, and once you start sharing experiences, you realize that there really isn't a difference. Really, that's across the generations and across the cultures, and seems like a really nice thing to do. And actually, talking about cultures, it does feel maybe. And you will know better than I do. You're based in Spain. You've lived in Greece. That perhaps the European Mediterranean culture are a little bit more open. They're a little bit more family based. They will talk to each other a little bit more than us. Have you found that, or is this just me thinking outside the box a bit too much?
No. I think my hypothesis is that in those cultures. So I'm married to an Italian. In those cultures, and probably more in time gone by, families used to stay together, right? So they'd be in the same village, they'd be often be in the same house.
Yeah.
People where I live, that's what's happening. Grandma is either in the house or nearby, and granddad. And I think what you get through that sort of social phenomenon is generations talking to each other. And I've
Yeah.
actually done some research in my other sort of work space around intergenerational connection, or disconnection rather. And I think in England there is that lack of connection between older people and younger people. So, for example, when Dad had dementia, he lived in Hove, so I used to go down regularly to see him. I took him to a Specsavers appointment one time, and um, we were in the waiting room, right? And the person came out of the waiting room, and there was sort of half a dozen old people, half a dozen younger people, some kids around, and the person just sort of seemed to walk past my dad and didn't even sort of attend to him. He only
Right.
attended to younger people who could connect with them, and I just felt like in that moment, I think my point there was that like elder people just get a bit lost, they get a bit ignored, they don't get
Yeah.
heard, and
Yeah.
I think that now is growing a bit because as a sort of, if I look at my nephews who might be like in their teens, if they don't spend enough time with their grandparents, they just feel like old people, and they don't know how to talk to them as much. So I think to answer your question, in Southern Europe, because you're much more closely connected, you have a sort of drip feed of more knowledge and just stories, and I think more than maybe I had. I think.
Genuinely interesting. Neil, if we want to get involved, how does it work? How do we go about finding you?
Yeah, so I mean, the best place to start is with the website. So meandmyoldman.co.uk. There's also an Instagram page, meandmyoldman.stories. The way, yeah, so I mean, start there. What it starts with is just a conversation for 30 minutes, just to meet me and to talk about your parent and find out what you want to know. And then we agree an approach, but basically, in essence, it's a few steps. It's I sit down and talk with you and find out what you want to know. We record that conversation. Then I go and speak to your parent, and I go with the brief that you've given me. I want to know about the days playing hockey, or why she left boarding school, or what happened to the grandma and grandpa. And then I do that over two sessions, two-hour sessions. So they're really in-depth. They're like free-flowing. I follow the energy. There's some other fun things in there which I always keep secret until we do it. And then at that point, I share back the recordings, right? So the way I like to talk about it, it's like an audiobook. So what I found is that the story behind my dad is that we did actually start this process 10 years before he passed away, but it was a written thing, because that's what you think about, right? Your biography.
Yeah.
I'll do biography.
Yeah.
So I left Dad some questions. I kept emailing him and like getting him to write stuff down. He did a bit, but he wasn't a writer. The way he wrote wasn't the way he talked or like made a joke. He was trying to be, I don't know, W.H. Auden or something. It's just like, that's not my dad, right? But what you get with audio is, I think, maybe your test of this as a radio DJ, is like people talking. It's like their real selves and they come to life.
Yeah.
So sharing that back, sharing a 4-hour ish audiobook of your parents' life back to you and the parent is like the beautiful moment. It's the favorite part of the project, is the first time they get to hear all of this stuff they've never heard before. So this morning, this morning I spoke to the son a couple of weeks ago. He was a bit sketchy, right? His dad's 87. He's had a previous marriage, previous kids. There was stuff that he didn't know. He didn't know that much. And then, I did 4.5 hours with the dad, and like everything he was saying I was just like, your son has no idea this happened. Your son has no idea this happened. So that's the 4 hours. I share back that as an audiobook to the pair. And then I say to them, listen, there might be some gaps. We might not have covered everything. What do you want to know more about? Or parent, what do you want to share more about? So at that point, they give me some bullet points, and we have a final hour conversation where I sort of take a bit of a step back and just sort of facilitate and watch them. Because that space has been created, there's the license to ask those questions. Back to what you were saying at the top, like it's not the kind of thing you ask your parent, but now after you've done this experience, you're both jumping in. That's the point where they can do it. I wrap that up, and then I give the final sort of delivery back to them, which is this beautiful audiobook with the parent's life story.
Hmm. I think anything that brings people together, be they societies or cultures or just families, is definitely a good thing because it gets the narrative going again and learning about people. People are absolutely fascinating. And why shouldn't those people be your immediate family? Neil, I love it. Me and my old man, thank you so much for that. Best of luck with all of it and connecting families together. Have an absolutely lovely Christmas and speak to you soon.
Thank you very much, Leo. Cheers.